The power of creativity goes greatly underrated. A child with an imaginative mind can have so much fun and make so much memories and explore ideas they never had naturally. You want to ask how to open your mind? Creativity is indeed key. For this reason, video games and people who play video games may have a more analytical and different approach and look to the world. Again, highly underrated, untapped potential. I describe the idea of the best video games being mass multiplayer of 30 to 60 players at once with mass freedom, possibility, and exploration, providing some thinking skills, some teamwork, some leadership, some of all things relatable to our real life. That's not to say build a separate virtual reality, but video games allow us to tap into a creative part of ourselves online, for the reason that we can't always do all such in real life. That being said, video games should not suppress what we are able to obtain of real life, nor should even real life suppress us from these potentially motivating and inspiring creative outlets. You may say, well, you are playing the game already created. But see, the best created game is the one where you too can be creative in your own ways, even to the extent of overreaching the game's limits for the sake of challenge and further wonders. You may then ask, well, how do you design a balanced game when there's freedom and creativity? It depends. Does everyone have the same freedom and creativity? Because then it may not matter. The problem is, because it isn't truly of real life, it doesn't ever seem to be truly perfect. And that's not to say real life is perfect, but as even the video game was created, the possibilities are actually quite endless. While one or many may strive for perfection in any one work, the work doesn't ever compare to the work of life itself. The closer one does, the more it may appeal, especially if it's easy access, like in a technological device for a video game where our minds alone are often at use with some minor use of physical body parts. Even in real life, all things have gotten generally easier, but we see how that can even make things actually harder. Again, the same applies to video game development. We have so much potential as a human species, but also realize you can't seek to make a system of a game that will be perfect. Therefore, applying this video game mental focus to government, it is indeed much of the mind, much of forming our reality, and much of a game where we are the ones playing against one another, purposefully, unnecessarily, and even a game that is somewhat self-defeating, like any video game is when it consumes our life or doesn't serve any real worth. Government does consume our real life and does not provide real worth. In fact, it entirely exists based upon your worldview reality and your mental belief in it as statism, for governmental is mental as the mind control for a reason. A game has you controlled to limit among certain rules or set developments made by humankind. You are in control of your character, perhaps in some choices within, but not the choices of the game development itself or how the game works. You simply go along with it and do your best. Some enjoy the game, others do not. This often is correlated with advantage and help from others, and again, the case of multiplayer. While you cannot control the natural law of life itself, you can control yourself and your alignment to natural law. Nature is not a game, but it's a reality of many games. One such game humans often presume upon themselves as government, which becomes their reality, as they are ignorant to refuse to see the greater reality beyond extending to nature. Therefore, your mind is controlled. Your character isn't fully of your own control, being that it must comply to the restrictions you actually partake in. Therefore, you do not have control over these restrictions because you could just not choose to play that game. Every game has restrictions of its own. While natural law is of infinite possibility, it simply speaks to us upon right and wrong for us to learn ultimately. Just as government or the video game may be seen as man's law of dictating non-objective aspects of right and wrong, it speaks of limited possibility for us to play thinking that all there is, maybe hoping for the next game proposed by the same or similar or new developers. Developers, like governors, is not nature. They may be creative in nature, but they are not nature, which is why they must always learn from nature for the most possibilities of new, innovative, or better video games, even learning human nature and psychology and keeping individuals addicted and in constant play. Life cannot be seen as a gigantic video game because our minds set our path. The algorithms in life would be far too complex for any one soul of any one character to understand. This is akin to an individual behind a computer playing a game. There's them, the screen, then the game, then the character. Life being seen as a video game may be among the convincing science or simulation route, which may limit one's expansiveness of mystery. To an extent, science and simulation is at play, but nature is of infinity, including that of which is and that of which isn't. Government isn't actually existent, nor is a video game, although easier to identify. All things exist in some form, however. The irony plays to all that's always at play. Nature related to that of truth speaks among what simply is. Nature related to that of illusion speaks among what simply isn't. Both identifiable among the greater reality, as we see who is really playing the game and who is really running the game, who is really funding the game, who is really making the game, who is really using the game, who is really manipulating the game, and so on. The point is that creativity coincides with knowledge, that while knowledge as power can be used for good or bad, creativity as expression can be used for good or bad. Sometimes it's just a matter of what reality you live in, what that reality is really controlled by, and what you choose to do with any reality. First is, do you have the underlying knowledge? Then is, do you express it with creativity? Because knowledge used is expression, is creativity. It takes knowledge to make a game, to run a game, and some to play it. Creativity to make a game, continue to run an alive game, and manifest the best playable environments and immersion. Play the game where you have the most creativity, the most knowledge, and the most sense of actual self, even if it submits other games within. Remember what is the real life. Be of life, be of nature. Expand your mind so that your reality is that more of actuality, one where you are more in control, not of government and not of a game you are restricted of play. May you see restrictions in the harsh reality of life, just know there are many conditions and multitudes of situations that breach into and out of it, unlike any video game that may ever be. You are like no other in this life. You shall be as you shall make it to be, while you were born to be, and to create, decide your fate. It's never too late. Don't make it too late. Ledge upon what you know. Say no to those who ledge forcibly upon you. The game of life or anything doesn't fully play itself.